Welcome back to Basement Dweller Tabletop. So tonight I'm going to talk about the Orks, the new Codex, losses, gains, etc., etc. I don't have a copy because it is not available yet unless you dig around the internet. So some of you may have seen it floating around. Got a nice copy digitally leaked somewhere. Now I've seen a few units. Big thing that stands out to me is I'm going to have to figure out my points for everything again. Of course, I had a green tide army with 3 mobs of boys and some extraneous other units tacked on. I was going to use some ludas. I needed an excuse to paint up my ludas. I was going to add them to the army. Um, but they're not in the army anymore. So we've had some big changes to Kazgul. So my old tactic was to tack him into a big unit of boys with a pain boy and give that pain boy the enhancement that allows you to re-roll charge roll or charge movement. So Casgle would effectively get that re-roll charge. Doesn't get that anymore because he's not part of the unit. He is effectively a lone operative. He runs around on his own, does not join units anymore. He's truly a monster. I mean, he's a big boy. It's a large boy, and that's not too bad. And he's got a cool aura that affects all Orcs units around him, which technically, even though these guys are Gretchens, Weedy Gretchen, they have the Orcs keyword, so they're affected too. He gives them boosts, and everybody who fights around him fights better. I have finished my battle wagon. So I got to still do some magnetization to get the different components to stick. So I've got a nice grabbing claw. My turrets are detachable, so if I want to, I can field it as a classic battle wagon. Or in the new codex, you have the gun wagon, which has the big turret and the zap gun or the kill cannon or the big guns that does not have the firing deck on the back. That seems to be a big change. Now, technically, none of the wagons use the death rolla specifically anymore, but they've kind of rolled it into the melee combat values. I don't think they're taking that sprue out of the battle wagon kit. They're just not forcing you to choose, hey, let's do the death rolla. You can't use that cool spiked ram piece, which I have a bunch of floating around in my bits box because I did not put them on any of my battle wagons. But now you can build your battle wagons up in different ways and make them distinctive. Some people are thinking that we're going to get the Death Rolla as part of a third battle wagon release later in the edition. I don't think GW is going to worry about that. I think this is what we're getting for the edition. Maybe next edition we get some add-ons. Get the magnets on there so I can have my grab and claw up here, or I can swap it out. Oh, it doesn't get the lava anymore. The lava is not part of the combat list, so I can just pull that off. And the odd thing about the old battle wagon, I guess it's not that old, or it is kind of old. Compared to some of my orcs, it's quite new, but it has been around for a number of years. But this kit has some distinct oddities. You've got all of the options. In prior editions, you could use all of them. Like I could do this grab and claw, and I could do a wrecking ball, and I could do 4 big shooters, and I could do a lava, and I could do a kill cannon. You'd have all of those additions. But the hard points on the kit itself, even if you have the back cover plate, there's another, I don't have it out, I'll show it to you guys another day, but there's a plate that fits over the back, and this turret normally fits over that gives you 1 extra hard point. Well, even then, it's hard to fit all of the big shooters on because you got these 2 guys who are in the back who are manning, obviously, zoom in a little bit on those guys. They're manning obvious hard points on the sides of the vehicle. The other 2 big shooters are actually attached to, one is being manned by Gretchen, and it's a little add-on. It looks a bit like this component here. It's almost like another turret on top of the turret on top of the tank. So it's this Russian stacking doll of orc stuff. And then the other one also takes one of these circular hard points, of which even with the back piece on there, you've got this 1, 2, and then 3, and I think you get a 4th one with the back piece, but I think it gets covered up too because you put this guy in the back And there's another piece that he sits on top of. So I think you've only got 3 of the circular hardpoints in total at max, and you need more to have all of the options attached. Your 2 extra big shooters, your grab and claw, your lava. That's what it was, lava. So the new edition simplifies the weapons quite a bit. You get the big guns and the big shooters, and then everything else is potentially a melee weapon. Gun wagon gets the guns. The battle wagon gets the melee stuff. The gun wagon gets the melee stuff too, but it doesn't have the troop capacity. Doesn't carry as many orcs. It doesn't have the firing deck, so a little different options on the battle wagons. So I'll have to decide how I'm going to apply that to my orc army going forward. And I'm going to put something else in it because there are no more Ludus. Ludus have been completely removed from the Codex. And that happens every edition. Everybody gets a little upset, a little annoyed. My plans with my Ludas, mine are still on 25s. So I'll probably put them on 32s to get them on the bigger, more current base. And these are going to be some cool looking big shooters that I can drop in. Some people have suggested using them as flash kits. They would be good, pretty good flash kits. Again, some of my Ludas have some more of the classic weapons. These guys are just going to fit really well with the idea of being, hey, we're just big shooter boys. We have some big shooters, or I have a rocket launcher. I can just drop him into one of my other classic squads. This is actually an old Mechaniac. It's kind of hard to tell. He's a little messy. He's going to get repainted. Kabam. Circa 1997. A buddy of mine loved his orcs, and I ended up with a bunch of them somehow. I think he went off to the Marines, and I ended up with a big chunk of his orc army. So I've tried to take care of it and repaint and do the stuff you're supposed to do to make an army look good. I've heard some good stuff and some bad stuff about the Squighog boys, so we're just going to have to see how they play. I'll keep them in the army. I think they do a little bit more damage, but they lost a bunch of their durability. Just a little tough in the new edition because they're harder to hide. They can't do the hidden. They can go through most terrain because they're mounted, but they can't go through some of the dense terrain very easily. The Gretchen have changed. Some people say the Gretchen have had a glow up. I don't know. It's Gretchen. I mean, there was a lot of growing to do to be a really solid unit. They don't give you the command point anymore. So they've changed some things. They do some scouting. They do some uh, invulnerable saves for squads behind them. They do some different stuff. Harkens back to some older editions where the Gretchens would get in the way of enemy fire, or they would be thrown out there to blow up minefields or various things. So it does feel very thematic for the Gretchen, the changes. And I think they've found some other sources of CP, so it feels less like you have to take Gretchen. I think we'll see more armies without Gretchen in the future. Not a ton. I think they're still a pretty good option. They're low cost units that can do actions. They're relatively mobile. You can jam tons of them. Okay. The battle wagon, not the gun wagon, the one without the guns, just the melee stuff, has a 22 orc capacity. You can fit 44 Gretchen in it, or 40 Gretchen and 2 Runthers with no problem. The boys, still a mainstay. But I think the Green Tide rules are changing. There are 16 detachments in the new Orc Codex, which sounds amazing, but that's a lot of new rules to learn. A lot of stuff. It's going to take a little while to digest and really get some optimal combos going, get these flowing. So in the meantime, I think I will work on painting my Dakarig. With a Dakarig, looks like it's gone up in points significantly, but it was still really cheap. I think it was like 135 points for the new Dakarig, the new Codex. There are no points in the new Codex, but some of the GW employees built lists. Check out Warcom, that's Warhammer Community. Take a look on there, and there's 2 orc lists that have been built, and you can find some of the points for the various orc squads, and those will likely show up in the Munitorium manual here in the next couple of days. I'm betting we'll see it sometime this week. And my kilocans have changed significantly. So really going to be kind of a come to Jesus thinking about my orcs, how I want to do them, what I want to remove, what I want to add. got lots of other squads to paint up. So short term, I'm going to stick with my project. So my project was to get these 2,000 points painted. It's not 2,000 points anymore. I don't know how many points it is now, but I'm going to get these Def Coptas painted up. A couple of those are from Blackreach. I've had them since Blackreach came out. Get them painted. Get these boys painted. And that'd be the last of the big blocks of boys that I've got. Then I can work on some of the Armageddon boys. I've got plans within plans. It's tough to stay focused. I'm thinking ahead, oh, once I get this done, I can paint these and I can do that. I can do all kinds of stuff. But sometimes you just got to stay focused, get your project done, finish up my Storm Boys. This is the last squad of Storm Boys that I have. Then all my Storm Boys will be painted, which would be great. Get my Waaaggghhh painted up. He's pretty cool. He's going to be interesting in the new edition, the new Codex. We'll see how he plays out. Get my last mob of 2nd edition Gretchen painted up with their Gorka Morka Runthird. Yeah, it'll feel good to see these guys painted. I'm down to less than 50 to go. And then, of course, I got to figure out what I'm swapping out. Maybe I put some with the Mega Armor Nopes. I've got some of those. I've got some of the classic Bad Moon knobs that I can paint up. The ones with the big flagpoles and the fire symbols on their armor. Those guys are pretty neat. I could swap them out for this mob of Ludus. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. This is really the only unit I'm not going to paint right now. I think I'm just going to keep plowing forward on the rest of it. I still got 20 boys over here, 6 Def Coptas, 3 Killicans, 10 Gretchen, Waaaggghhh, and 5 Storm Boys to paint from the original plan. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Oh yeah, and 1 Pain Boy who's got to get rebased onto a 32. I don't know if you guys have seen. This is one of the classic. He's pretty cool. He's one of the classic. I'm not blind you with my lights in the background. One of the classic Pain Boys. He has a handsaw. And when I built him, I gave him a shooter. But he probably doesn't even need a shooter. He's got all kinds of little details on his back. He's got more tools, more equipment, all kinds of stuff. A apron up under there. Pretty neat. Oh yeah, and he's got his doc's light, that little reflective light that you see at the doctor's office. He's got one of those on the front of his mohawk. So I'll try and make that more obvious once he gets painted up. But that is a Rogue Trader era Pain Boy. Yeah, so the Orks are coming along. All right, for everybody who's stuck around on my rambling, for those of you who watched my Paper Tigers report, I have been working on some, they're a little cartoony, but that's half the fun of it. I have been working on some Vanguard veterans. You got the jump packs and chain swords and the little scary grills, little Imperial eagles on the fronts. These guys have been lots of fun to just draw them up. These are a little bigger than the final result. I'm going to shrink them down a little. I still have to ink them. I tried copying them, making some photocopies and making some adjusted size photocopies, but this is just pencil and it does not copy very well. So my plan is I'm going to ink over these. I've got some markers. I got some pens that I can ink them in a little bit more detail, and they will be the Vanguard veterans for the Paper Tigers. Wife is talking about doing a dreadnought, a box knot. Not gonna be pushy, but I would be really happy to see that. That'd be lots of fun. She wants to start doing some measurements on one. I gotta find my old box knot so she can get a close representation. Might ask her to make it a little bit bigger so it's more like a Redemptor. But that is that's the Orks. That's the status of the Orks. That's my thoughts on Orks tonight. I think the key takeaway of the new Codex, the new edition's first Codex, is that you roll with the punches. Don't let it get you down. Games Workshop is a business. They're in it to sell miniatures, to make money, and sell books and blah, 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 and get people to play. They're not necessarily out there to convince people to go have fun. We had to do that on our own. They're just facilitating the guide rails of how we play. So it's up to us to figure out how we want to keep going in the hobby. It's always changing. We roll with the punches. And for those who have their armies mostly purchased, hey, the good news is you don't have to deal with the price hikes. You might go out and get one or two more units and fine tune and buy a little bit here and there, but you're not starting from scratch and paying all the increased prices that they do every year. So, hey, little silver lining. So there you go. Orks and paper tigers. Hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.